Greetings. We continue today the study of the ministering of the two witnesses, part one. This is the second installment. The sevenfold purposes of what would be accomplished in the 70 weeks of Daniel is set forth in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24. So the declaration of Daniel 9:24 through 27 in Matthew 24, 4 through 31 needs a quick review. The seven purposes listed in Daniel 9:24, which God will accomplish in the 70 weeks of years upon Daniel's people, the Jews, and their city, Jerusalem. One is to finish the transgression. Two, to make an end of sins. Three, to make reconciliation for iniquity. Four, to bring in everlasting righteousness. Five, to seal up the vision. Six, to seal up the prophecy. And seven, to anoint the most holy. Again, Matthew lists seven signs of the glorious appearing to the world as Israel's deliverer. Authority to rule in Matthew 24:5. Authority to wage war in Matthew 24:6 and 7. Authority to govern economics, that is famine, man-made through economic sanctions, Matthew 24:7. Authority to govern death, Matthew 24:7, through pestilence. Some maintain that our recent, COVID exercise was a foreshadowing of that. I'll leave that to your understanding. 5, the authority to govern martyrdom in Matthew 24:9 and 10 and 16 through 22. Number 6, authority to govern creation, earthquakes, verse 7, sun, moon, and stars, verse 29. And finally, authority to execute judgment in verses 32 of Matthew 24 all the way through chapter 25 and verse 26. As we have seen and are discovering, the opening of the seven seals from the scroll exactly answers these seven signs. Further execution culminates in the fulfilling of the seven purposes stated in Daniel 9:24 toward Israel and the unbelieving world. So now let's consider the duration of the measurement, the deciphering of the measurement. What is the meaning of this measuring? The revelation that the Gentiles will tread underfoot the city and the temple and the people of God for 42 months. As Jesus was answering three distinct questions in Matthew 24, he made this statement recorded in verse 22. And except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Now, question number 1 was, when shall these things be? That is the answer to, there shall not be one stone left upon another, from Matthew 24, verses 2 and 3. Question 2 was, what shall be the sign of thy coming? And question 3, what shall be the sign of the end of the world? Again, we remember that Jesus was addressing his disciples, who were both members of the Jewish nation and members of the church which he personally had established. We must accurately answer the following question to accurately understand his answers. Was Jesus speaking to them as members of the Jewish nation or as members of his church? Someone has suggested a fourfold outline for Matthew 24, 1 through 34. 1, a time of travail in verses 4 through 8, which answers question number 1, which was fulfilled in AD 70 and continues until today. Question 2, a time of tribulation, verses 9 through 14, which can be fulfilled in the first half of the 7-year period that we have plainly established is owed to God by the Jewish nation. And 3, a time of great tribulation in verses 15 through 28, which will be fulfilled in the second half of this 7-year period. So the answer to question 2 is contained in these two, the time of tribulation and the time of great tribulation. Number 4, a time after the Great Tribulation in Matthew 24, 29 through 34, which brings about the end of the world, which is the answer to question number 3. Someone has also suggested a pattern from the book of Daniel that applies to the events in the book of Revelation. Daniel experienced favor, Daniel 6:1 through 3. Then he experienced persecution in verses 4 through 18. And then he experienced deliverance in chapter 6, verses 19 through 28. Likewise, Mishael, Azariah, and Hananiah, otherwise known by their pagan names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, experienced favor in chapter 2, verse 49 through chapter 3, verse 15. They suffered persecution in chapter 3, 16 through 23, and they experienced deliverance in Daniel chapter 3, verses 24 through 30.